My parents handed me a gift card in front of the table and said it was all I would ever get. So I slid the bank statement across and pointed to 20 monthly transfers I had been making to their account, and then stood up and left without another word. I, 31M, stared at the gift card sitting in front of me on the polished dining table, wondering if this was some kind of joke. My parents had called me over for what they described as an important family discussion, and I had driven 3 hours to be there, expecting something serious. Instead, Mom slid a plastic card across the mahogany surface with a tight smile, while Dad folded his hands and watched me with that expression he always wore when he thought he was teaching me a valuable life lesson. Mom explained that they had been thinking about their estate planning and wanted to be clear about expectations moving forward. The gift card, she said, represented a token of appreciation for everything, but they wanted me to understand that this would be the extent of any financial assistance I would receive from them. Dad chimed in, adding that they believed in teaching independence and self-reliance, and that my brother had agreed this was the fairest approach for everyone involved. I picked up the card and turned it over in my hands. $50 to a restaurant chain I had never eaten at. My brother sat across from me, unable to meet my eyes, studying his water glass like it held the secrets of the universe. He had always been the favorite, and I had made peace with that years ago, but something about this moment felt different. Something felt calculated. I asked them if they were serious, keeping my voice level. Mom bristled and said they absolutely were, and that they hoped I would be mature enough to accept their decision with grace. Dad launched into a speech about how they had worked hard for everything they had, and how they deserved to enjoy their retirement without obligations hanging over them. The words washed over me as I sat there, doing the math in my head. 20 months. I had been sending them money for 20 months. It started when Dad mentioned having trouble with the mortgage after some bad investments. He had called me late one night, something he never did, and his voice had that edge of desperation that made my chest tight. He asked if I could help out temporarily, just until they got back on their feet. I had just gotten a promotion at work, and the extra money meant I could afford to help without completely destroying my own budget. So I started sending them $1,500 every month. It hurt, but I managed. I cut back on everything, canceled subscriptions, stopped eating out, drove my old car instead of upgrading like I had planned. My girlfriend at the time left me partly because I could never afford to do anything anymore, but I told myself family came first. I told myself it was temporary. Except it was never temporary. The requests kept coming. The mortgage, then the car payment, then some medical bills, then repairs on the house. Dad would call with that same tight voice, and I would transfer the money because that was what you did for family. Mom would thank me sweetly and promise they would pay me back once things settled down, and I believed her because I wanted to believe her. I had never asked them for anything in return. Not once. When I lost my apartment because I could not afford the rent increase while sending them money, I slept on a friend's couch for 2 months and never mentioned it. When my car broke down and I had to take out a predatory loan to fix it, I kept quiet. I just kept sending them money, month after month, because they were my parents and they needed help. And now here they were, telling me this gift card was all I would ever get. I reached into my messenger bag slowly and pulled out the folder I had brought with me. I had not planned on using it, had actually hoped this meeting would be about something else entirely, but clearly I had been naive. I opened the folder and slid the bank statement across the table, the paper making a soft sound against the wood. I pointed to the highlighted lines, 20 months of transfers, each one marked clearly with the date and amount. $30,000 total. I had highlighted them all in yellow before coming here, some part of me already knowing how this would go. The silence that followed was spectacular. Mom picked up the paper with shaking hands, her eyes scanning the numbers. Dad leaned over to look, and I watched the color drain from his face. My brother finally looked up, confusion written all over his expression, and asked what he was looking at. I explained calmly that these were the monthly transfers I had been making to their account for almost 2 years. I had been helping them with their mortgage, their bills, their emergencies. $1,500 every month, like clockwork, because Dad had called me desperate and Mom had promised it was temporary. Dad started to say something, but I held up my hand. I was not finished. I told them I had been tracking every transfer, keeping records, because that was what responsible people did. I had documentation of every phone call where they asked for money, every promise to pay me back, every excuse about why this month was particularly hard. I had been patient because I believed family helped each other, but apparently that philosophy only worked in one direction. Mom tried to interrupt, her voice taking on that wounded tone she used when she wanted to make me feel guilty, but I stood up before she could get momentum. I told them the gift card was perfect, actually. It was a clear statement about where I stood in this family, and I appreciated the honesty. I would be keeping the bank statement, though, for my records. My brother asked what was happening, looking between our parents with growing understanding. I could see him putting the pieces together, realizing why they had suddenly been able to afford their recent vacation, the new car in the driveway, the renovations to the kitchen. Mom had told everyone they had come into some money from a smart investment, and I had stayed silent because I thought it was none of anyone else's business how they managed their finances. But apparently, I was not an investment worth maintaining. I picked up the gift card and set it back down in front of Mom. I told her she should keep it, maybe take Dad out to dinner to celebrate their newfound financial independence. Then I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door. Dad called after me, his voice sharp with authority like when I was a child, demanding I sit back down so we could talk about this like adults. I paused at the doorway and looked back at them. I said we had just talked about it like adults, and they had made their position clear. I was simply accepting their terms. Mom was crying now, theatrical tears that might have worked on me once, saying I was being unreasonable and cruel. I reminded her that I had never been unreasonable or cruel when I was sending $1,500 a month while working overtime and eating ramen for dinner. I had never been unreasonable or cruel when I was covering their mortgage while I was homeless. But apparently expecting basic acknowledgement or gratitude was asking too much. My brother stood up and said he had not known about any of this. I believed him. Our parents had always been good at controlling information, at playing us against each other when it suited them. I told him it was not his fault, that he should not feel bad about being the favorite. Someone had to be. I left before anyone could say anything else, walking out into the cool evening air and feeling like I could breathe properly for the first time in months. The drive home was long and dark, and I spent most of it trying to figure out what I felt. Anger, definitely. Betrayal, absolutely. But underneath it all was something like relief, like a weight I had been carrying had finally been acknowledged. Update 1. The call started about 3 days after I left. First from Mom, long voicemails about how hurt she was, how I had embarrassed them in front of my brother, how she could not believe I was being so petty about money. Then from Dad, shorter messages that were more threats than apologies, reminding me about family loyalty and suggesting I was making a mistake I would regret. I did not answer any of them. I had said what I needed to say at that table, and there was nothing more to discuss. My brother called on the 4th day. His message was different, confused and hesitant. He said Mom and Dad had told him their version of events, claiming I had offered to help them and was now holding it over their heads. He wanted to hear my side before making any judgments. I appreciated that, at least. I called him back and sent him copies of everything. The bank statements, the text messages where they asked for money, the promises to pay me back that never materialized. I did not editorialize or try to make them look worse than the evidence already did. I just let him see the truth. He called me back an hour later, and his voice was different. Tight. Angry. He asked why I had never told him what was happening, and I explained that I had not wanted to burden him or cause family drama. He laughed bitterly at that and said the drama had been happening anyway. I just had not known about it. Apparently, our parents had been telling him for months that I was selfish and distant, that I never helped them with anything, that I was too focused on my career to care about family. They had used my supposed selfishness to justify why my brother should be the primary beneficiary of their estate. He had felt guilty about it, but had trusted their assessment of the situation. Now he understood why I had been distant. Not because I did not care, but because I had been quietly drowning while they told everyone I was swimming. He said he was going to talk to them, demand answers, but I told him not to bother on my account. I had already made peace with the situation. Whatever relationship I had with our parents was over, and I was okay with that. He could maintain his own relationship with them if he wanted, and I would not judge him for it. But he surprised me. He said he was not okay with it, and he was not going to pretend everything was fine just to keep the peace. If they could lie about me that easily, what else had they lied about? Update 2. 2 weeks after my brother confronted our parents, I got a call from Dad's lawyer. My stomach dropped when I saw the name on my phone, certain they were going to try to sue me for something ridiculous. Instead, The lawyer explained that he was calling on behalf of my father to discuss a potential repayment plan. Apparently, my brother had done more than just confront them. He had told them that if they did not make things right with me, he would refuse any inheritance and cut contact with them entirely. He had grown up watching them favor him over me, and he had spent years feeling vaguely guilty about it without understanding why. Now he understood, and he was furious. Our parents had not taken him seriously at first. They assumed he was just emotional and would calm down once things settled. But when he started refusing to answer their calls and blocked them on social media, they panicked. My brother was the golden child, the one they paraded around at family events, the one who made them look good. Losing him was apparently worse than admitting what they had done to me. The lawyer outlined a proposal. They would repay the $30,000 in monthly installments of $2,000 over 15 months, with the first payment due immediately. They would also provide a written apology acknowledging their behavior and thanking me for my help during their difficult time. In exchange, they hoped I would be willing to maintain some form of relationship with them. I asked the lawyer if he was serious. He assured me he was, though his tone suggested he found the entire situation distasteful. I told him I would think about it and get back to him. I called my brother immediately. He answered on the first ring and asked if I had heard from the lawyer. I confirmed I had, and asked him what he had said to make them panic so badly. He said he had simply told them the truth, that their behavior was inexcusable, and he wanted nothing to do with people who would treat their own son that way. He had meant it, too. He had already started looking for therapists who specialized in family trauma, because he realized how messed up our entire childhood had been. I asked him if he really wanted to blow up his relationship with them over this. He said it was already blown up. I just had been the only one who could see it. He was done pretending we were a functional family when we clearly were not. The thing was, I did not want their money anymore. Not really. $30,000 would be nice, obviously, but accepting it felt like agreeing that this had all been some kind of business transaction gone wrong. It had not been. It had been me helping my parents because I loved them, and them exploiting that love because it was convenient. I told the lawyer I would accept repayment of the $30,000. But I did not want a written apology or any pretense of relationship repair. They could send the checks to my brother, who would verify receipt and deposit them into an account of my choosing. Once the debt was paid, we would all go our separate ways with clean consciences. The lawyer called back 3 days later to say my parents had agreed to the terms. Though they were hurt, I did not want to reconcile. I told him to note in his records that I was hurt too. I had just had more practice living with it. Update 3. The first check arrived exactly on schedule. $2,000, made out to me, with my father's signature in the memo line. My brother deposited it into a separate account I had opened specifically for this purpose. He sent me a photo of the deposit receipt along with a message saying our parents had tried to include a long letter explaining their side of things. He had refused to accept it. That was 6 months ago. The checks have come like clockwork, every month, never late. We are halfway through the repayment plan now, and I have not spoken to my parents once. My brother maintains minimal contact with them, mostly logistical conversations about the payments and estate planning. They have apparently revised their will to split everything 50-50 between us, though I have made it clear I want nothing from their estate. My life has gotten better in ways I did not expect. Without the monthly drain of $1,500, I have been able to save money, move into a decent apartment, replace my dying car. I started therapy to work through the complicated feelings about my family, and my therapist has helped me understand that setting boundaries is not the same as being cruel. I have also reconnected with some friends I had lost touch with during the years I was struggling. When I explained what had happened, several of them admitted they had noticed something was wrong, but had not known how to bring it up. One friend said she had assumed I was dealing with a gambling addiction or something because I always seemed broke despite having a good job. The thing nobody tells you about cutting off toxic family members is how quiet your life becomes. I used to have a constant low-level anxiety about money, about phone calls, about disappointing people. Now I wake up and the anxiety is just gone. I make plans without calculating whether I can afford them. I buy groceries without mentally tallying every item. I exist without constantly bracing for the next crisis. My brother and I talk regularly now, real conversations where we are honest about our feelings and our past. He has been unpacking a lot of his own baggage about being the golden child and what that cost him in terms of genuine relationships. He said something recently that stuck with me. Our parents did not love either of us. They just used us in different ways. I think he is right. The final check will arrive in 9 months. After that, the debt will be paid, and I will have $30,000 saved that I never expected to see again. I have been thinking about what to do with it. Part of me wants to donate it all to charity, make something good come from something painful. Part of me wants to keep it as a reminder that standing up for myself was the right choice. Mostly, though, I try not to think about it too much. The money was never really the point. The point was that I spent years sacrificing for people who saw my love as weakness, and when I finally asked for basic recognition of what I had done, they handed me a $50 gift card and told me to be grateful. So I stopped being grateful. I stopped being accommodating. I stopped setting myself on fire to keep them warm. And my life got better. That is the real ending to this story. Not the money, not the revenge, not the dramatic confrontation. Just the quiet realization that I deserved better than what they were offering, and the willingness to walk away when they proved they could not provide it. I am doing fine now. Better than fine, actually. And I did it without their help, which I think proves their point about independence even if they did not mean it the way it landed. The gift card, by the way, is still sitting on my dresser. I have not used it. I keep it as a reminder of the exact moment I stopped letting other people determine my worth. Best $50 I never spent. If you'd like to see more stories like this, a gentle tap on the subscribe button would mean the world to us.